Hello, my name is Olu Osha. I like talking about American presidents. Today, I want to talk about our 42nd president, Bill Clinton. I did something earlier on him. I discussed his notorious crime bill of 1994 and its adverse impact on black communities. It had a disparate impact, demographically in America. Now, there was another very significant bill that Bill Clinton signed into law. It's called the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. It deals with welfare reform. On his campaign trail, Bill Clinton had promised, in 1992 that, he was going to change welfare as we know it. And, it turns out he did. It was a hot topic. It was, you know, something that was normally uh, pandered within Republican circles. Welfare was actually a dog whistle for Republicans because Ronald Reagan had used it in the 70s, and he'd highlighted, in fact, probably coined the notion of the welfare queen as being a black woman with many children who was a crook, who was milking the American people through welfare and not working but actually buying luxurious items, Cadillacs, fur coats, and all from exploiting welfare as an entitlement program. So there's a lot to unpack in this, and so I'm probably going to try and break this into a couple of videos because I'm going to give the historical background with respect to welfare, which started during the time of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in around 1935, and of course it was reinforced with a Stamp Act under President Lyndon B. Johnson. The Stamp Act today, and so many other programs as well. The Stamp Act today, it's now known as the SNAP program. That's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. It's federally funded, providing low-income families, ability to buy, groceries, nutritious groceries. Um, Bill Clinton's Welfare Reform Act, which he signed into law in 1996, impacted all of those things. So it changed welfare as an entitlement program, which was how it started under FDR, and it was reinforced by Lyndon Johnson. So he changed it as an ended welfare as an entitlement program. It was something that Republicans wanted. Remember, Republicans welfare was a hot topic. It was their hot button issue, something that they were advocating because uh, they were now moving on a neoliberal platform. I discussed neoliberalism earlier as the notion of having personal responsibility, let market forces just operate, and that individuals were responsible for their success or their failures, and there shouldn't be any government intervention. Social benefits, social humanitarian and relief programs should be handled by by the private sector. So with Bill Clinton's reform, Welfare Reform Act, Republicans got most of what they wanted anyway. And to be fair to him, it was actually Congress and the House, the House of Representatives and the Senate were led by Republicans. The Republicans dominated, during the time of his presidency. At the time he signed these bills into law. And Newt Gingrich, he was the Speaker of the House at the time, and he was from Georgia. He was from the South, and so I'm going to unpack. There's a lot I have to unpack, and that's why I'm going to divide this into two videos. I want to try and keep it tight. Um, Now, there's something I'm gonna do which I don't normally do. I like talking about American presidents because I study American presidents a lot, and of course, I study history. It's something I love doing on my own, and this is a period that um, I've given my spiel of being wrongfully detained by the state of Maryland under color of law violations, pivoting on subordination of perjury and fraud on the courts. And it's given me an opportunity to just, basically delve into history and use my background to discuss the history of our presidents, our nation. It's fun for me, and I hope it provides an educational um, uh, utility for somebody in the future. So it's a quick way to be able to access, things that it takes many people years, plenty of time to study. So today I'm just going to talk about my background. Just it sort of indicates that I sort of have some form of qualification to be able to talk about what I'm discussing. But I'm going to limit. I'm also going to link it to the the impact of Bill Clinton's Welfare Reform Act and how uh, it's adversely affected Black American communities. So I have I have a Doctor of Law degree. It's called a Juris Doctor from George Washington University Law School in Washington D.C. In addition, I studied international human rights law at the University of Oxford in England. In addition, I've been an intellectual property law fellow at Bocconi University in Italy, Milan, Italy. I have an MBA, that's a Master of Business Administration, specializing in accounting and information systems. I also did undergraduate work program in undergraduate major in accounting from Troy University in Troy, Alabama. I have a bachelor's degree in arts, Bachelor of Arts degree from Columbia University in the city of New York, Columbia University in New York. Very happy. Uh, Alexander Hamilton's alma mater, Barack Obama's alma mater. Hey, people I like, and I guess Franklin D. Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. So yes, I'm proud to have gone to these schools. And prior to my coming to the U.S., so I majored in. I actually had majors in history and mathematics. So fortunately, I'd actually been a biomedical engineering major and biological sciences major at Columbia University, but I switched and ended up graduating with a major in history and mathematics because I had enough credits. Um, I also have had a degree from Nigeria from the University of Jos before, um, a bachelor's of history in economic history and international studies, specializing in economic history and international studies. So yes, I that's a lot of degrees, and professionally, I've been a financial advisor, stockbroker. Uh, I was licensed with the Series 7 and 66. The 66 is an investment advisor and uniform combined state law exam. These are all expired, right? Well, I've just had previously had trading in these things. In addition, the Series 7, which is a general securities representative exam, which I had, and also, uh, so I worked with Bank of America uh, in Boston. So I was a stockbroker. I also worked as a financial specialist. I worked uh, at Wachovia Securities, is called Wells Fargo now. So I have this background. I worked at Booz Allen Hamilton. I have a background in business. So the reason I'm bringing all of these things is, if you notice, I've talked about the economy. Our presidents. Economy is big. Uh, on the agenda, right? So I have a background to be able to and training to be able to talk about, uh, the economy, and of course, most recently, I've worked in the federal government, the Department of Defense, Department of Navy, doing auditing, doing finance work as a financial analyst, things like that. So, um, worked in different banks. So I have that background in it's so banking and finance is very rigorous trading. You do a lot of rigorous trading. So I'm going to be putting out some economic concepts as I'm just discussing welfare and its impact, economic issues. So I do have the training to be able to discuss these things. In addition, but somebody who just devotes themselves to studying, right, on their own has the opportunity to do that. I've been wrongfully detained. I was actually locked up wrongfully. The state of Maryland has used something of a bill of attainder. So if you have time and you can devote yourself to studying, you can. It's something that you can do. You have, you know, you can study on your own and acquire this knowledge, right? If you decide to study on your own. So when I was wrongfully detained for 9 months without a trial, just on false accusations, I was wrongfully detained for 9 months in a jail locked up by the state of Maryland. I read a lot. I had an opportunity to continue reading, doing what I love. So what I'm saying is, even though I've listed my educational background, I'm just saying that people have an opportunity to actually study and know the things that I have, right, through individual study. Adam Smith in classical economics, he said, there are factors of production. He listed land, labor, capital, right? Some people say entrepreneurship as the organizer, but there's also something called the irredeemable resource, right? And that's time, right? So we all have time. So time is a very often overlooked but very important resource. So you have the time to be able to study. That's very important. Look for the time to be able to study on your own and develop yourself. And this is something I try to do, despite the fact that I've been wrongfully detained, prevented from working, and I've continued to use my time to develop myself. So that's why what I want to talk about right now regarding the Welfare Reform Act is very, very important. Is very, very important. Like I said, I'm going to actually do a number of videos and just discuss and break this down. So first of all, the first thing I wanted to talk about is mention the history of welfare. In 1935, after the Great Depression, and in order to address the Great Depression, there was a welfare program that Franklin D. Roosevelt passed, and it was called an entitlement program, right? Because remember, Herbert Hoover was kicked out of office. He was a Republican because when the Great Depression hit, he didn't do anything about it because he thought that the federal government should not be involved in humanitarian and relief programs. That the private sector or the states should take care of it. But FDR had a different idea, and so FDR started a welfare program, ADC. That's aid to families with dependent children, and this was an entitlement program. So this was started in 1935. This was later augmented by Lyndon B. Johnson, in the 1960s. And so this video is already getting long, so I'm going to do a subsequent video, and so I can start in detail and provide the features. My name is Olu Osha. I like talking about U.S. presidents. I'm going to do a follow-up video and discuss, Bill Clinton's Welfare Reform Act of 1996. Thank you. I'll keep you posted.